The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar. My name is Liz Carino. I'm the marketing manager here at Arctic Kingdom. Today's webinar is focused on Arctic Kingdom's polar bear migration fly-in safari. For the duration of this webinar, you'll be on mute, but if you have any questions, please type into the chat window and I will respond at the end of the webinar if time allows. If I don't have time to respond during the webinar, a member of our team here at Arctic Kingdom will definitely make sure to follow up with you. So I see a couple of more people joining now, so I'll wait a few more seconds before jumping in. All right, let's get started. So polar bear migration fly-in safari was the first trip that I traveled on with Arctic Kingdom, so I'm really excited to jump right in here and tell you all about it. But before we get into it, let's briefly go over what we're going to be talking about in this presentation. So who is Arctic Kingdom and why travel with us? I'll tell you a little bit more about us. Where are we going on this trip? What to expect? So what's the safari experience that you will get on this trip? What are the accommodations like? And then we'll get into some more information about the team here at Arctic Kingdom. So about Arctic Kingdom, who are we? Well, we're the global leaders in land-based travel in the Canadian Arctic, and we specialize in small group experiences in the Arctic. We're actually headquartered in the Arctic, so we live and breathe it. And we've been crafting adventures in the Arctic for nearly 20 years now. Our 20th anniversary is in 2019, and we actually pioneered the Arctic Safari. Unlike any other polar bear tour operators anywhere in the world, we offer polar bear tours almost year-round, running trips from March right to almost the end of November. So we definitely have a polar bear tour for every season of the year and all conditions. But today, we're going to be talking about one of our polar bear experiences in the autumn. Why Arctic Kingdom? Why travel with us? Well, like I mentioned, we have 20 years of experience in the Arctic and unmatched access to remote locations. We like to say that we make the inaccessible accessible. We offer experiences nearly year-round, and we're the only operator to offer polar bear tours in every season. There's no other operator that offers the diversity of experiences that we do in the Arctic. We really have something for everyone. We have, sorry about that, experienced guides, divers, and Inuit guides. And what we're going to be talking about today is our scheduled trip. However, if you are looking for a private bespoke experience, we can put that together for you as well. We do also have a private option for this trip. We won't be talking about that in depth today, but if that's something that you're interested in, please contact us and we'll be happy to give you some more information and talk to you more about that. So if we get into the trip, Polar Bear Migration Fly-in Safari. This is the program that we affectionately call Walking with the Bears. It's a cabin-based safari, a really true off-the-grid, authentic tundra experience. It runs in October and November, and it offers opportunities to view and photograph polar bears from the ground level. So unlike other polar bear tours, that means that we don't use any type of vehicles like tundra buggies or rovers. We're truly walking with the animals, and we'll talk more about that later. But what that means is a really amazing perspective to get close to the animals, observe natural behavior, and get photos from a lower vantage point that you don't really see that often. So this trip starts mid-October and it runs to about mid-November, and we typically run about 7 to 8 departures on an annual basis. This trip is in a really remote location, so it's far from any communities or light pollution, and that makes it a really great spot for chances to see the northern lights at night. That depends on the conditions, of course, but we do have really great opportunities at this time of year and in this location. And in addition to polar bears, we also have opportunities to encounter other Arctic wildlife. That includes my personal favorite, the Arctic fox, as well as snowy owls, Arctic hare, and other animals as well. Like all of our safaris, we pride ourselves on the culinary experiences that we're able to offer in such remote and spectacular locations. We'll talk more about this later, but I just wanted to mention here that you'll enjoy gourmet food prepared right at the cabins. I also wanted to mention that we have very limited availability for this trip this year, and we're experiencing a great year this year, just like last. So if you are considering this experience for this year, I really encourage you to reach out to us or your travel professionals very soon to ensure that you secure one of our last few spots. And we'll have some contact information on the last slide for you as well. So just an overview here. This trip is 8 days, 7 nights. It is at a cabin complex in a remote location, and the tour price includes the chartered flight directly to the cabins. It's a really small group experience. The cabin complex has a total capacity of 8 guests. You'll enjoy the services of Arctic Kingdom expedition leaders, as well as local Inuit guides from neighboring communities. All meals in camp are included. As well, we do have ensuite washrooms in the cabins, which we're going to be talking about later when we get into the accommodations. So, where are we going? As you can see from the map, our polar bear cabins are located north of Churchill. And we're in what we call Polar Bear Alley, right on the west coast of Hudson Bay. So we're located in Nunavut, not Manitoba, just north of Churchill. We're about 110 kilometers south of the nearest community, which is called Arvia. So why are we in this location at this time of year? Well, autumn is a really special time of year in the Arctic, specifically in western Hudson Bay, where this trip is located. The local polar bear population in this area consists of about approximately 1,000 bears. And at this time of year, they migrate up the coast, waiting for Hudson Bay to freeze over so that they can go out on the ice to hunt. This is the reason that we go up to this time of year, to witness that incredible migration. About 60% of the world's population of polar bears is in Canada, and Western Hudson Bay in this area has a really stable population. Like I said, that healthy number of around 1,000 bears. So getting there. This trip starts in Winnipeg, Manitoba. After a short commercial flight from Winnipeg to Churchill, you're going to be met at the Churchill airport by one of our Arctic Kingdom representatives and transferred to a private plane. That chartered aircraft will bring you directly to the cabins. So you'll board this private single turbo otter flight for a 50-minute flight to the cabins. So it's very easy to get there. And we make it really simple and accessible to enjoy the Arctic in this area. And the flight to the cabins in itself is really amazing. It's definitely a highlight. It was definitely a highlight for me, as well as a lot of our guests on this trip. Depending on the conditions, you'll get the chance for aerial views and photography. Possibly, we've even had views of wildlife down on the tundra below. You'll get to see the transition of land from the spruce and evergreen trees of the boreal forest into the taiga, which is the thinning of the trees, and then into true Arctic tundra. And the views from the flying experience are spectacular, and like I said, definitely a highlight. So the accommodations. As you can see from the photo there, our cabins are situated in remote tundra right on the coast. The landing strip from the flight is immediately adjacent to the cabin, so it's just a few steps off the plane and into your cabin, your accommodations. The cabins are surrounded by an electric fence. This acts as a deterrent for the polar bears, and it kind of adds an element of safety to allow the polar bears to approach us. And it also allows photographers to photograph right through the fence, really allowing unparalleled access to these icons. So as you can see from the photo, we have 4 sleep cabins there to accommodate a total of 8 guests. So you really do get that intimate small group experience. And the great part about these cabins is they have ensuite washrooms and private heated showers, unlike some of our other trips. So it does add that extra element of comfort and luxury in these really comfortable and warm but rustic cabins. You also have a common dining and lounge cabin just steps away from the guest cabins, which you can also see there in the picture. Everything is quite close together and convenient. You won't have to walk far to get to the dining room and to your cabins. And then the polar bears are known to wander right up to the fence. So the cabins do allow for a really comfortable, safe, authentic tundra experience. Like I said, we're located just north of Churchill and south of the community of Arviat, and we're also south of a major river called the Jelini River. So this is a really prime location to see polar bears in this area as they walk right by our camp and often right up to the fence. So it's a really incredible opportunity to see them. So the polar bear cabins experience. It's definitely an experience like no other polar bear experience. Bear sightings are possible 24/7. We're in their environment the entire time. So it's possible to see them, during the day and even during the night as they kind of wander past the cabins. And when they're not in the immediate area, we'll venture out on the tundra for short hikes. So all the hikes that we go on will be guided by our Inuit guides or expedition leaders, usually not more than an hour, and they're quite easy strolls. The area is totally flat, and you'll be able to see some really incredible, unique environment here as well. And the goal of the hikes are to hopefully encounter some wildlife. So we might encounter a bear out on the land, Arctic fox, hares, or other animals. And we always ensure that we keep a safe distance, of course, but getting out onto the tundra is definitely an experience in itself. There's no other place on Earth like it. One of the top bucket list experiences that travelers to the Arctic want to see in addition to polar bears is the Northern Lights. And the location of this trip is a great place and in a great time of year to be able to see them on this trip. While it depends on the conditions, of course, it's definitely possible to see them every single night. Clouds and atmospheric conditions, they do play a part in the number of and the quality of light shows that you can see. However, we typically experience at least one good Northern Lights show per departure, but it's more than definitely possible to see them every night. And it's definitely a great way to end an amazing day of adventure on the tundra and polar bear viewing, to be able to come home to gourmet meals prepared by a professional chef and sit back and watch the Northern Lights and even take some pictures if that's what you're interested in. Our expedition leaders are always happy to provide photography tips as well for those that may not be familiar with photographing the aurora. Our expedition leaders are very talented photographers themselves. Most of the photos that you see in this presentation are from our expedition leaders. So they can certainly get out there and help you set up your tripods and your cameras so you can make sure that you capture those amazing shots. So we touched on this a little bit already, but one of the things that makes this trip so special is the opportunity to see polar bears from ground level. We're not looking down on them from vehicles like they do on other polar bear tours, but we're actually standing eye to eye to them. And we're able to safely view and photograph them from behind the electric fence, as I said, so we can get really close up, which is really amazing and transformational. For those interested in photography, the low vantage point allows some really dramatic and unique shots that you can't really always get when you're looking down at animals from a cruise ship or from a vehicle. So you can get right down on the ground with them to capture similar photos to what you see here. So you can get some really, really unique shots. Here's just one testimonial we had from a client, and I think she does a great job of summing up the experience. she said, "We were able to photograph a mama bear and her cubs chasing males and many more polar bears. From ground level is a wonderful way to photograph these amazing animals. To be able to look at mama bear and her cubs right in the eyes was just a very emotional moment. I was so sad when we had to leave to go back home." I think she does an amazing job of summing up the experience and its experience, and it mirrors my experience there as well. It's truly an emotional and moving and a really a humbling experience to stand next to and look right into the eyes of these majestic animals. So just a couple shots here as well that showcase that low vantage points and what a difference it really makes for you to be able to get some really incredible shots. All of the photos that you see throughout this webinar have been taken on this trip. We often get questions on what kind of photography equipment you need to photograph polar bears or other wildlife on this trip. And I just wanted to point out that we've had guests on this trip with camera gear that ranges from cameras with professional lenses to smartphones. And whether you have professional lenses or you're just taking your smartphone, you're going to have the opportunity to take amazing photographs. You know, we have opportunities to get quite close up with bears and other wildlife. So it definitely offers a range of experiences for those that are professional, amateur, and hobby photographers, and even those that are just looking to experience polar bears, the northern lights, and the true Arctic tundra. Something for everyone. Here's another great one here. So what to expect on this trip in terms of wildlife? As I've been mentioning, you have the opportunity to view wildlife from the ground, but we also have the potential to see different family units of polar bears as well. Whether it's a solo male or female adult polar bear, or even mothers with cubs, and the cubs will range from about 10 months old to 2 years. And we've even seen sparring happening around the cabin. We had some great sparring encounters last year. So that's a really incredible experience for our guests as well. Plus, something that's really cool is the opportunity to see them at night. So watching them wander by the fence in the dark is really a unique experience, for sure. But it's not just polar bears. We can also get great chances to see the animated, entertaining Arctic fox. We call them the clowns of the tundra for a reason. Opportunities to see hares, pine martens. We've even been lucky to see snowy owl, wolverine, and caribou here as well. Every year is a little bit different, and so you never really know what might end up being the highlight for you. As I said, I mean, I loved seeing the polar bears, but the Arctic fox were definitely a highlight for me, which I wasn't expecting. Of course, the northern lights are also possible to see, hopefully on multiple nights, depending on the conditions. So what to expect in the experience? Like I said, we pride ourselves on our culinary program here at Arctic Kingdom. What better way to top off a day in the Arctic than with delicious appetizers and a gourmet meal? So the menus are typically a fusion of local delicacies such as Arctic char or caribou, for example, combined with specialty foods sourced from down south. Plus, we'll always have hot and cold drinks and snacks available throughout the day. The conditions. Temperature-wise, we're looking at winter-like conditions. So the later we get into the year, the colder it will be. In November, we consistently see temperatures below negative 10 degrees Celsius, but we can see between negative 20 degrees Celsius to negative 5 degrees Celsius, depending on the time of year. We typically get about 8 to 10 hours of daylight, so that's lots of time to get some really great shots. And the sunrise and the sunsets are also, they seem to last quite a long time, and that creates a really great light for photography as well. So you don't just have to wait for those full daylight hours to get some great shots. Of course, we know that not everyone has winter-ready gear for this trip, so we do offer a polar clothing rental package that will have all the outer layers that you'll need to be comfortable during this trip. We highly recommend it for this trip. We'll suit you up with the same gear that our expedition staff uses. You'll have everything you need, you'll be warm and dry, and you'll be able to enjoy the Arctic in comfort. Here's a couple of more shots. You can see the fence in this shot a little bit, so you can get an idea of how far apart the lines are there, so you can kind of shoot exactly right through it. So you can see also here that the low vantage point definitely makes a difference in your photography. Okay, so let's talk about our team. On safari, so our safari team usually consists of Arctic Kingdom expedition leaders, Inuit guides from neighboring communities, as well as an executive chef, assistants, and even some camp managers as well. On the back end, we have our sales and operations team. So our sales team is available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, always available to help. So contact us anytime if you have any questions. And we have our trip logistics team as well, which is our operations team, as well as our client services coordinator. Our client service coordinator takes care of all post-sale questions, briefing materials, hotels, and all client care post-sale. And she's available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 as well, and always happy to answer any questions that you or your clients might have. So, how do you book this experience? Well, it's simple. Just contact your travel advisor, or you can also contact Arctic Kingdom directly. We'll talk to you about the experience in depth. We can give you an idea of availability and what to expect. And the contact information is here for you as well. So, we just have a few more minutes here. It's been a real pleasure talking about this trip. I really hope that we have the opportunity to see you in the Arctic sometime soon. I have just a few more minutes left on the clock here, so I'll take a look and see if there's any questions. Okay. What is the maximum in a small group? Okay, that's a great question there. Our maximum capacity on this trip is 8 guests. But if you were interested in booking a private experience at this camp, we're able to book out the entire camp as well. You could just contact us about that and we'll give you some more information on that. So thanks for that question. What are the temperatures in October, November? I kind of went through this a little bit, but you can expect, depending on the departure, between -20 and -5 degrees Celsius, and 8 to 10 hours of daylight, as I mentioned. What clothing is recommended? So we do offer the polar clothing rental package, and we do recommend that you rent that for this trip. So that is available for rent from us. However, once you book, we will be sending out a full packing checklist, so you kind of get an idea of exactly what you want, what you should be bringing or should be preparing. I have a couple of questions here about the cabin interiors and dining and lounge. So I can definitely send that out to you as well after the webinar. So I now have another question here about minimum age for guests. We do have a minimum age of 12 for this trip, but we would definitely want to talk to the parents to get a sense of the travel experience and the needs of that family, and we can talk about that on a one-on-one kind of basis and suss that out. All right, so I think we're coming up to the time here. There's a couple more questions, but I will definitely reach out to you personally to be able to answer a couple of these for you. Once again, thank you so much for joining me today. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email us at adventures@arctickingdom.com or give us a call.